The following podcast is a presentation of Project Entertainment Network.
Welcome to Staring Into the Abyss. I'm your host, Richard Gerlach. With me, as always, is Margaret Patrick Hicks.
Hello.
And Matt Brandenburg.
What is up, creeps?
It's back. We're coming at you for a special 50th anniversary episode. It includes the return of Matt.
Hey, I was here last week.
50th episode.
Yeah.
It includes the return of Matt.
50 episodes.
It's super crazy to think about.
We'd have even more if we didn't fuck up the first 10.
That is true. But you know what? That was a blessing in disguise.
Hey, and you brought back your shitty microphone for the 50th event.
I did. Because you know what just happened?
Skype fucked you up.
It's back now. My mic just came unplugged. I was like, oh. Oh, yeah.
One way to do it.
In honor of this momentous occasion, we have decided to sound like shit yet again.
Right.
I mean, I will say I've been proud of us. We have been sick for these last few episodes.
No, we haven't.
Which is like a surprise for us because we were sick for our first 30 episodes pretty
Something
much
like
off and
that,
on.
Yeah, pretty much the first year.
Definitely seemed that way.
My two boys are just getting over a cold, so my time is about run out for healthiness. I'm going to be. It's November 1st at this time. Kids are getting sick. It's time. We're going to be getting into the illness recordings pretty soon. Deathbed Confessional podcast.
Ooh, that's the best one. For our 50th episode, we decided to go through a retrospective and a listener's mailbag. We'll be answering questions that were sent to us via Twitter and Twitter DMs and email and etc. But before we dive into the mailbag, we got any recommendations from this last week?
Not the Creepshow animated special that was released for Halloween.
So
nope,
it was
not at all.
That bad?
They went with the laziest, cheapest, last-minute animation production they possibly could have.
Oh.
Both stories were done as motion comics. So you get this freeze-frame panel, and then every now and then, one eye will blink, or if it's movement, one leg will move to show that the guy's walking.
Why? Why would they waste their time on that?
It was really bad.
They knew Halloween was coming. It comes every year.
And it sucks. Because Survivor Type is one of my favorite King stories. That was the first adaptation. And it was narrated by Kiefer Sutherland, who I want now a Kiefer Sutherland audiobook of Survivor Type. With the sound effects, that would have been great. But as a cartoon, it was crap.
What sucks, too, is, essentially these were audiobooks.
Yeah.
And, it just makes it even worse, where it's just, I'd rather just listen to this than actually, watch it. Yeah. And the fact I see people praising this on Twitter tells me that horror fans are just okay with shit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's any old shit. Just shovel that in your mouth.
Oh,
the
nuttier the better.
The closest it got to actual animation was in the second story, Twittering from the Circus of the Dead or the Damned. I don't remember exactly what it's called, based off of a Joe Hill story. And the closest it gets to animation is when the tweets scroll across the phone.
Yep.
Because that was the easiest way to do a motion comic. That's the closest it ever came to actual animation.
Oh.
That makes me sad.
It was painful.
To make it even worse is in the motion comics as well, you had one character drawn to look Stephen King and Survivor type.
I kind of liked that part. I thought that was cute.
It was cute, but it was still kind of like, I don't know. It didn't sit well with me with how shitty the animation looked.
Yeah.
And then you had Greg Nicotero in Touring from the Circus of the Dead as well. Which Greg Nicotero directed both of those. But I'm sure he's going to block us on Twitter now after he hears this.
Well, I mean, you've already pissed off. Was it Scow or Skip that you pissed off?
It was Scow.
It was Scow. So we may as well piss off Nicotero at this point.
That was fucking hilarious. Oh, man.
We're going to slowly work our way through the creators of Creepshow and get blocked by them. Yeah. I think that's our new goal.
We're just challenging them to make something good.
I really wish that were the case. Because
I wish it was good.
The first season had a handful of episodes that I thought were really good.
Yeah.
But there is a lot of room for improvement come season 2.
I watched the first season recently, and the only episode I really like still is Men in the Suitcase.
Okay.
Because I feel Men in the Suitcase is the only one that feels like Creepshow.
I wanted to rewatch Lansdale's episode for Halloween, and I didn't, but I should have watched that segment instead of the animated special.
Yeah, I don't know. I like Men in the Suitcase. A lot of people didn't like that one, but I feel like the original Creepshow is like a mean movie. It's like mean and darkly comical, and I feel Men in the Suitcase fits that vibe really well that the other segments weren't able to fulfill.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. It was, as soon as I saw the animation style they were going with, once that started, I was like, all right, I got to go get a drink if I'm going to sit here for this.
As soon as I saw the animation style, I just took out my phone and half paid attention.
Yeah, I almost turned it off right at that opening segment where I was like, oh, shit, it's animation. It's bullshit. This is animation comic.
Yeah.
How long was it? Was it just a half an hour?
It was a standard. Yeah, it was a typical episode, like 45 minutes.
Yeah.
Oh, man, that's a long time to sit through that.
Yeah, it is.
Keep your phone ready.
I'm trying to think. I don't remember, when Watchmen came out, they released that, special DVD that was
a motion comic for, the Black Mariner or whatever. Yeah.
And that was okay. I mean, that was neat just because I liked that story. So I thought that was kind of cool. But I don't know, man. After a while, that does get kind of not. Again, you have all this time. I mean, Creepshow came out earlier this year. They might be filming season 2, but if it's a cartoon, just spend time on it and make a cartoon.
I think this was a last-minute rush production they did because of COVID delaying season 2. So they were like, oh, shit, well, we need something to try and fill the time because we wanted to launch season 2 for Halloween, I'm guessing was their original plan. And then COVID shut down their production. They didn't have enough to start the season. So Shudder gave them $5 or $10 and they went on Fiverr and hired an animation team.
Not even, just somebody knows
it was John in his basement.
Yeah, he knows how to use Adobe Fireworks, so he's like, all right, I'll do this. Or After Effects. He's like, I can make something like this.
I can only do one frame at a time, and you're going to have to make sure each frame runs for 5 or 10 seconds.
Yep. Well, you know what? Oh, you go, Mike.
I was going to say, I don't know if it was my sound equipment, but with Survivor Type, the audio seemed really off.
It seemed off to me, too.
Whatever they did, Kiefer Sutherland's narration was terrific, but he was really soft. And he was constantly getting drowned out by the background noise. So you'd have waves washing ashore that were going over his dialogue and seagulls crying. You couldn't hear what he was saying over the background noise.
That's somebody who tested it on their headphones and they're like, all right, this sounds good, but not in the actual screen.
I mean, it was a hack job. It was poorly mixed audio. It was shitty animation, and the stories are so much more deserving of what they received.
I agree 100%.
Especially disheartening given how long Nicotero has been wanting to put Survivor Type on screen.
Yeah.
To finally get his chance to do it.
This is how he did it.
Yeah, exactly. At this point, I would rather it just not have been done than get this.
Yeah.
Instead of a good job and deserving the merits of that story, you produce this half-ass photocopy.
If you can't do it, then that's fine. Do like a special on the movie Creepshow where you're doing special commentary or something. That's easy. You just sit and watch and record it. You don't have to spend. It's like, don't give us crap. Yeah, don't give us crap and then expect us to like it.
Now, again, you know what? Give me an audiobook of Survivor Type with Kiefer Sutherland. I will be a happy motherfucker. The animated, you can keep it.
Well, I got actually something good I saw this week.
Well, nice. Oh, I know what you saw.
I went to the theaters. I braved these COVID streets with our good buddy Derek Sotak.
Oh, yes.
And we saw Synchronic by Benson and Moorhead.
Oh, is it good?
It is fucking phenomenal.
Is it worth getting deathly ill for?
Yes.
Okay, well, great.
Let's back up. Were you guys the only one in the theater?
Yes.
Okay, so that's good. So you're a bit.
The reason why we went is because we knew this is a movie that no one's gonna fucking see.
Yeah.
So we'd be in the theater by ourselves.
Well, like if it was it's safe to say after that Benson is no longer following you on Twitter. That is a real backhanded compliment to give a movie of this.
It is, but like at the same time, it's like Benson and Moorhead are fucking great directors, and no one talks about them enough.
Yeah.
And this movie has like no advertising.
Well, I know even as the creators of this movie, they did not want it to be at the theater at this point in time.
Yeah, they even said like if they had their press statement said like don't go, like just rent it on VOD when it's on VOD. I wanted to see it so badly that I decided to go, and it's wild. Do you guys remember that Louis C.K. joke about time travel?
No.
So Louis C.K. has a joke about time travel that's like, if you're white, you can travel back to any point in time.
Oh, yeah, I remember
life is fucking great.
Yeah.
But if you're black, it's like nowhere before 1970, please. This movie is pretty much that.
Oh,
it's
man.
like,
jeez.
It's pretty much Anthony Mackie and the dude who played Christian Grey in 50 Shades of Grey are EMT drivers. And Anthony Mackie finds out he has a brain tumor. And there's a drug on the street called Synchronic. It's like a designer drug. And the people who take this drug have been dying really bizarre deaths. Like they're finding people at the bottom of elevator shafts. They're finding one guy who's been stabbed through the shoulder with a sword from the 16th century.
Oh.
They're just
sure he's not just in Canada.
They're finding really bizarre shit. And Christian Grey, his daughter, has taken Synchronic and has disappeared. Like, no trace of her has been found. So Anthony Mackie decides to buy up all the drugs. And he doesn't want anyone else to, like, go through this. And he's like, he buys the batch up. And that's when he finds out that for people who've seen The Endless and Resolution, the drug Synchronic is made by a rare red flower that's found in the California desert.
Oh.
And it was meant to be like a DMT substitute, but it ends up people who take it travel back in time for 7 minutes only.
Oh.
So Anthony Mackie decides to test this drug and figure out how it works so he can try to go back in time and find his friend's daughter before his brain tumor kills him.
Oh, wow.
And that's the movie.
I love this premise.
It is one of the few time travel movies that it sticks to its premise and doesn't fall apart if you try to pick it apart. Like, I love Avengers Endgame, but that time travel, that movie's flimsy at best.
Yes.
Man, I wish they would have just put this on VOD.
Yeah.
It is really fucking good.
Is this Lionsgate? Are they the one responsible for putting this in the movie theater in the pandemic?
No, this is Go USA.
Oh, yeah.
I will say for Benson and Moorhead, they're typically like used to working with smaller budgets.
Yeah.
And like they make every penny work. This movie's a bigger budget for them. You can tell because there's multiple locations. And they actually have good special, like really, really well done, like special effects work. but you can tell they spent every single penny to make this movie like look the way it does. I'm pretty sure a lot of the budget went to hiring Anthony Mackie.
Yeah.
They got some really big name actors for this. So I'm happy to see Benson and Moorhead like really moving on up, because they're really great directors that should be mentioned on the list of like best modern horror directors alongside Ari Aster and everybody, but no one talks about Benson and Moorhead. So I'm happy to give them the time of day.
I look forward to eventually being able to see this, because I'm guessing movie theaters are going to be shutting down again pretty soon here.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I will say, when I went, like, it was just me and Derek, and that was it. No one else was in the theater.
Yeah. I don't even know. I think theaters just opened up recently for us in Michigan. I don't even know what's out.
Yeah, I feel like it was
what's out.
Like a month ago, right?
Yeah.
Honest, I didn't even care it was out, but I saw this was out, and I was like, "Ooh, I really do want to see this one."
I'm at the point, just put it on disc. Just let me go and buy it. Order it from Amazon or Best Buy, or put it on VOD. I'm not interested in playing these Hollywood games to try and sit with a mask in a movie with a bunch of coughing assholes for 3 hours to see the new Bond flick.
I'm sorry, what? Was that me?
Well, the important thing is you're safe.
Yes.
Hey, I gotta get weekly COVID tests at my job.
So you may as
tested
well
positive and negative each time.
Yeah.
So it's good.
You may as well fuck around then. You're already getting tested.
It's best that way.
You know what? No condoms. I got to get tested anyway.
Right. It won't affect anybody else.
No.
Fuck it. Fuck it.
Nothing I do affects anybody else. I am an island unto myself.
I'm American. I keep sanitizer in my car. I wear gloves when I'm out of my car. Like I try to be as safe as I can when I'm out in public.
Well, good on you doing the gloves. I don't even go that far. I try not to leave the house.
I ain't fucking around with this COVID situation.
But I mean, I tried not to leave the house even before COVID. So
true. Yeah. So this is fine.
Like if I'm not going to work, I'm not going anywhere.
But we'll say Synchronic, check it out.
Nice.
Oh, anything from you, Matt?
Yes. So I am reading this book called Behind the Horror. I believe it came out earlier this year, and it is all the true crime stories tied or that movies were based on. Oh. So like it covers, I'm probably about halfway through, and they've covered stuff like Texas Chainsaw Massacre and Psycho, and how that was all kind of based on Ed Gein. And so they give you a little bit of the Ed Gein backstory, or they talked about Alfred Hitchcock's Rope and Frenzy, which are I think it was Rope was it or Frenzy? Frenzy was the interesting one, because it's like about like the in London, all these like serial killers that kind of popped up in the 50s and 60s. And so Hitchcock based it on like 4 or 5 of them. And this guy kind of takes it and gives you like a little snippet of each. He also did one on the movie M, Fritz Lang's M. And I thought that one was the most interesting. It's the first movie that he covers, and it's like he's talking about Germany in like 1916 and how many serial killers and cannibals were in Germany in that like 2 year, in like 1916 to 1918. There was like 6 or 7 different serial killers and cannibal people running around. And it's just crazy. These guys they would be serial killers. They would just grab people and kill them. And then it was like this one guy was a butcher, and he would serve it all up at this train station, and people would eat it.
So it was Hannibal.
Yeah, pretty much.
Or Shia LaBeouf.
Or Shia LaBeouf. Does he kill people?
Actual cannibal Shia LaBeouf.
Is he? I didn't know that. That's interesting.
Is this allegedly? Are we going to get in trouble saying that?
Probably.
It's a YouTube video. YouTube it after this episode.
All right, we'll have to research that while you get your lawyers on standby.
Yes. But no, it's really interesting just to kind of look at it, and it's kind of it's kind of like a little bit of a fluff, because I needed something kind of mindless. I mean, it it's just each chapter is a different movie, so nothing that is gonna live with you forever. But it's some interesting stories and just the concept. And what I even found more interesting is how like the directors and, you know, writers of these movies took these things and twisted them into a certain way, or like took pieces of things happening. So like the one chapter I'm in now is all about Jaws. And so it's talking about like great white shark attacks in Jersey, early 1900s. And then, and how like nobody believed it, and all these big swimmer, like these really good swimmers, they would swim way past where they're supposed to, and then the sharks would attack them. And like at one point, like a shark scientist, not a marine biologist, but there's some technical term for shark scientists, was like, well, if you guys don't swim out that far, you'll be fine. And people still are swimming out that far and getting attacked. And so it's a good one. I needed something because I'm also rereading Thomas Ligotti's Penguins Classic, and so I needed something light to balance that all out.
Ooh, which Penguins Classic one are you reading?
So I'm reading right now. I'm almost done with Songs of a Dead Dreamer, so then I'll be hitting. I think Grim Scribe is the other.
That's
part
a heavy one.
Yes.
So, quick question, Matt.
Yes.
The German cannibals.
Yes.
Were they interacting at all? Was it like a group, or was it just coincidental that you had so many coming out of the woodwork at one time?
It was coincidental. I mean, well, coincidence as in like Germany at that time was destitute. They were broken. How obviously that was how Hitler kind of was able to take Germany. And
yeah. Oh, this was what, post World War I then?
Yeah. So
like Weimar Republic.
Yes.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of, that was kind of like the back story was just about how like no one could work, and all these towns would boast jobs, but then when people actually got there, it was like the highest unemployment rate, or like how women would have to sell their bodies just to get food to feed people, their families. And so it's like, so the coincidence was that like they all just took advantage of that. But there wasn't like some club that they all hung out in. Though surprisingly, they all, like a number of them would take people into the woods and then kill them. So there's like this whole woods thing. So who knows what was going on?
Crazy.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So it was. And the other thing I thought was interesting reading this was that apparently back in 1916 in Germany, they had no problem with the guillotine. So they use that a lot. Every one of those serial killers ended up getting taken to the town square and getting their head chopped off. And
Man.
I was like, I
We're
didn't know
gonna bring
that.
back the guillotine.
I was just going to say we are in desperate need of some guillotine action here in the U.S. I guess depending on how the election goes on Tuesday, we might have an influx of cannibals in a few years here too.
Yeah,
We'll find out.
We'll see. Stay tuned.
So yeah, we'll see on that one. But it's fun. It's a fun little book. So,
Mike, what about you besides the shitty Creepshow? Any actual recommendations?
Chris Sorensen's The Messy Man. This is book 3 in his trilogy of ghost novels, which I have really, really liked each one of these books. And bless Chris Sorensen for creating a series of books that is not overly repetitive and relies on repeating everything the prior book does for each successive novel. When he started this trilogy with The Nightmare Room, we were introduced to a audiobook narrator named Peter and his wife, and they had to move back into his childhood home to care for his dying father. And it ends up that the house is haunted. And the whole mystery of why it's haunted is what propels the narrative crux of The Nightmare Room. And when I finished that book, it feels very self-contained for the most part, despite a few dangling threads at the end. And I kept wondering, as I finished that book and was waiting for book 2, how the hell he was going to make this into a series. And I was really, really worried that book 2 was just going to be more of the same. Well, it was not at all. Book 2 and now book 3, he kind of does a Law and Order on us with a rotating cast and different areas different geographic areas being explored, and even the hauntings that they face are different. So you get what feel like a series of standalone books that are connected thematically, but then he goes in and starts weaving in the various plot threads that connect the series and make it a unified whole. So now in book 3, we are dealing with a character named Ellen Marks, who has had small appearances in books 1 and 2, but rather than giving us the expectation that I think we would have had going into book 3 of an adult Ellen Marks, we're instead taken back into her childhood, and we see an 11-year-old version of her and how she comes about being the psychic investigator that she becomes in books 1 and 2, while also returning us to the story of Peter from book 1, but it is a very, 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 very different Peter than we originally met. And what Chris has done over the course of these 3 books, I think he has done a lot of exploration in terms of hauntings of the astral plane and the linearity of that astral plane. So book 2 started to introduce some time travel elements to it, where events in the past bleed into the present. And in book 3, he really takes that premise and blows it wide open and goes full on into that exploration with these
You've sold
characters.
Me. I've had the first book on my Kindle since it first came out.
Yeah.
I think I need to pull that trigger and read it.
I think you do too.
Yeah, this sounds amazing.
Yeah, they're really good. They are not what I was expecting initially. And after I read book 1, it's like, okay, I don't know what the hell he's going to do with book 2, but I have got to check it out. And with book 3, I will say, over the course of the last 3 years that these books have been out, I've become Twitter friends with Chris. So he's kind of an associate. I probably shouldn't call him a friend, but somebody that I will routinely communicate with online. And we've gone back and forth. And he's blurbed books of mine. I blurbed book 2 because I loved book 1 so much. But I don't say any of this to kind of like try and lick his ass, as this is all just very much, I am very, very impressed with this series. And I started out, I will shamefully admit, a bit skeptical as to what he was going to do, just because I've been burned by indie series so often where it's like the same book over and over and over. And you're like, why is this a 12-book series? For God's sakes, it's the same shit every goddamn book. Why you could have wrapped this up in one book, or I'll give you the benefit of the doubt and say a trilogy, but when you're pushing into double-digit zombie novels, it's there is no need for this. The world does not need this. There is.
Well, speaking oh, you go.
No, go on.
You finish up.
I went into a mini rant, so you go ahead.
I was going to say, well, I read the first book of a series. I finished it today, and that is Girl on Fire by Gemma Amor.
Oh, that's a series, is it?
Yes, it is.
I didn't know that. Well, it's Gemma. I know Gemma, so I'm series away.
It is. So this book follows a woman whose name is Ruby, and this is more of like, I want to say, a thriller speculative fiction story than what Gemma usually puts out.
I was wondering if this character was a bit of the Lisbeth Salander type of anti-heroine.
Not quite, but okay. I will say
she's got that punk look on the cover, so I thought
she does. So what happens to this character? The novella opens with her escaping her abusive father, who has been sexually molesting her.
Ooh. And
it's hinted that she's killed him, and she's on the run.
So it's just another lightweight read from Gemma.
Yep.
Right.
And she crashes her car, and her car ignites on fire, burning her. Only she doesn't burn up with the fire. And instead the fire burns off all her clothes and burns off her hair. And then she gains the power to control fire.
Nice.
And it follows her with like her trying to control her rage and her emotions with like her destructive abilities that she has.
Ooh.
And it follows her in kind of like what happens when people do wrong to her. as she kind of is trying to discover herself and discover her powers and discover what all this shit is. And there's hints to like a bigger story outside of Ruby. So there is going to be a part 2.
Nice. Awesome.
But this is a great page turner, and it's not as like rip your heart out as Dear Laura was.
Yeah.
But it still has the emotions that we associate Gemma's fiction with.
Yeah, I'll tell you, after Dear Laura, whatever she writes, I'm there for it.
Yeah, 100%.
It is fucking phenomenal.
Excellent. It is. It's on my Kindle. It got delivered over the weekend, so soon.
Yeah, I started it yesterday and I finished it today.
I like it.
All right. Well, should we do this, or we
should get into this mailbag.
Yeah.
All right. Let's rustle around. See what do we got in this mailbag?
Nice Foley work.
Got a letter here from a dear reader, dear listener, one or the other. I don't know. They probably don't read my shit, but they listen to the show. Am I going first? Am I doing the first question?
Give me the first question.
It seemed like it.
Rachel DiMaggio asks, what is the most frightening story you have ever read?
Ooh, I'd probably say Skeleton by Ray Bradbury.
I don't think I've read that.
That one fucked me up good.
What is it about?
To be honest with you, it's been a long time since I read it. All I remember is after I read it, I just stared at my wall for like 10 minutes. And when like sleep time came, I had to have a nightlight put in. And I was like afraid to go to sleep that night.
How old were you?
I was 15 years old.
Okay. So you're not like 23. And
Yeah. It wasn't like last week.
I'm like 32 now, so it's been a while. But I do want to reread it recently.
Okay.
That's fun. Man, I'm trying to think. I think, the one that I can think of that did affect me a lot was Let the Right One In. We had just moved back from New York, and we were living in my in-laws' basement, and like where we were was furnished, but the rest of the basement wasn't furnished. And the book, there's a part in the book where I think it is the main kid's older brother is dealing with the vampire girls, like that older gentleman that was with her.
The familiar?
Yes, the familiar. And there's a part where they're battling and he's locked in the closet with it.
Ooh,
and he's he's like bashing it, and he's not dying. And I think it was just being in that basement, it totally just messed with my head and was super freaky. And that's like, I think that would be the only one I can think of that's really messed me up. I mean, like, there's other stories that I've read that have hit me. I mean, like some of the Thomas Ligotti work, his will stick with me for a long time. There is that, which I think we've talked about before a number of times, but the Little Green Men, the Army Man story from Stephen King. My teacher had read that to our class in 5th grade, and I remember thinking about those Army Men for a very long time. But yeah, I think Let the Right One In was the one that really shook me up.
For me, and it's one that we've talked about before, and it was my introduction to Stephen King, and it was the novel It, which I read probably when I was in my early teens. I don't know exactly. So I'm anywhere between 12 and 14 probably. And we were up north, and I'm reading this thing in broad daylight. And I was fucking terrified. I got into the segment about the house on Neibolt Street.
Yes.
And when they were being chased by the werewolf down the streets of Derry, and it just completely fucked me up that whole day. I could not put the book down, but I was also extraordinarily terrified, and I'm turning page after page because it was so compelling and I was so scared I could not look away from it. And I had never read anything like that before. When I had picked up It, my parents were not thrilled that I had chosen that as a summer reading material. My dad was, and in fact still is, even now, is a 40-year-old man, fairly overbearing and overprotective. So he did not want me reading adult material that had sex and violence and anything, really. You know, it was just like I was forever a toddler in his eyes. So my mom did not want me reading it because she had read one Stephen King book when she was getting her master's degree for education, and she didn't like it. She said he was weird and he looks weird. That was enough reason for me to not read it. And she was just disgusted that I was obsessed with this book. But I couldn't get enough of it. And I had trouble sleeping that night. And I got up early to plow through more of it. I think I was so engrossed in that book. It was like a 1,200-page novel, and I finished it in 3 or 4 days.
Holy cow.
Like, all I did for that time we were up north, they had a house up there. So I would just stay home. They would go to the stores, they would go shopping, whatever they wanted to do. And I would just stay home and read. And I sat in the leather chair with that book all day and all night for as long as it took me to get through it. And I could not read through it fast enough. I fucking loved it. And yeah, that was the most frightening story I had read at that point. And I think to a certain effect, even still today, I can't think of another book that has really hit me the way that book did.
Yeah.
I mean, once you have your first like big scare, it's kind of hard to top that.
Yeah.
Like you can read something and like be like, "Whoa, this affected me," but you always think back to like that first horror book that got under your skin.
Yeah.
And like nothing else can really top that.
Yeah. I know segments of Tantlinger's To Be Devoured fucked me up pretty good. But even in that regard, I don't think it had that long-lasting psychological impact that it had for me.
Yeah.
And there have been other books I know that have kind of had me looking over my shoulder a few times, but I can't remember those. I don't know what they are. And I think that is a bit of a testament that not only was it my first Stephen King, I mean, that was where I really first fell in love with horror.
Yeah.
And it scared the shit out of me.
You want to know what my first Stephen King was?
Sure.
Dreamcatcher.
Oh, wow.
That's a good one. So you had the shit monsters.
Yes.
Yeah.
But
It was not a good first Stephen King book.
Yeah, I think Night
Like
Shift was
my first adult book. Literally, here are my first 2 adult book picks when I was like 13, 14 years old. You ready for this?
and House Forum and what else?
It was Dreamcatcher by Stephen King and Dune by Frank Herbert.
Wow.
There's a pair.
That is a pair.
I didn't finish Dune the first time I tried reading that book.
I still have never tried to read Dune.
It's good, but yeah.
It's good, but it's not good if you're like 14 years old.
Yeah, I was gonna say if I were younger, I knew that would have been one that I would have just skipped past. I don't think that would have worked for me. But yeah, I'm trying to think with it because I read Night Shift. I think that was my first Stephen King book. I'd seen all the movies, and then I had a friend that we would watch all the movies, and I think we watched the It miniseries multiple times when it came out in VHS one summer. And so I think I'd seen the movie before I read the book, so I was tainted a little bit just picturing stuff in the movie. But yeah, there was a period of time where I'd gotten all the hardcovers. I'd gotten a ton of hardcovers for, I don't even know what I got them for, my birthday maybe. So like I have the It hardcover. I'm looking at it now, and I had I don't even know, it was like a free class in high school. I think it was my junior year where we were all in the computer lab. And so it was supposed to do homework, but I would just sit and read all my Stephen King books. So like I plowed through a ton of them that year, and I think It was one of the ones. So which was fun to have in your bag. I mean, I didn't have any school books in my bag. I just had the hardcover of it.
But it felt like you had all of your textbooks with you.
Yeah.
Right. It made my bag look big, and that worked. So
It's such a good fucking book.
Oh, I absolutely love it.
yeah.
That was an instant favorite, and it's still unrivaled to this day, some 30 years later.
So what's our next question?
All right, I have one.
That was a really shitty Foley of work.
my phone doesn't fold up and crinkle. So I actually didn't. I think this is from Vicky Nations, but I didn't write down who these were from. I just wrote them down. So if this is from you, thank you. But and this is a good one because it's always funny how we try to figure out this answer. But
Is this the really heavy question?
no, I'm saving that one. Maybe I'll put that one in the middle. But this one is.
We should have talked about these in the order beforehand. Like,
Should have.
we don't want to get bogged down with the really
let's leave it as a
emotional.
surprise.
Yeah.
So this is a good one. This one's pretty light, and it is 2 questions in one. It is, how do you choose the stories you discuss when they aren't associated with an author or publisher interview? And then the second part is, do you choose stories for yourselves or because you want your audience to be exposed to something they may not have considered? So
Good question.
It's
Yeah.
a good question.
So I feel like they all come from you.
They all come from me. I think you recommended one time, Mike, didn't you? Or Matt?
Yeah, one of our lost episodes, I recommended Peter Watt's The Things,
Yeah.
That was a good one.
which was a sequel to the movie John Carpenter's The Thing.
Yes.
It
And
wasn't a
it's
sequel. I just thought it was just the thing with the perspective of the thing.
Oh, yeah, I guess it is kind of, it's a sidequel.
It's just like a different POV.
Yeah, it's a sidequel. That's a word that I am using to describe it. Yeah, you're right. It is set during the events of the first movie, but we get a flipped point of view. So we see it from the aliens' perspective instead of the researchers on the Antarctic base. And Matt did not like it.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember why I didn't like it, but
I don't know.
I think
You're crazy.
I think you didn't like it because it relied too much on having like the knowledge of the thing.
yes, it was definitely one of those ones where if you had picked it up not having seen the movie, you'd be like, I don't know what's happening.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And even over the course of these last 50 episodes, while Rich will take credit for the ones that we pick on a regular show, the authors pick what they want to read. However, we have learned on a few occasions that Rich has a guiding hand, even in those selections where
Only sometimes. Only
I
sometimes.
remember Max Booth filled us in that he wanted to talk about a particular story, and you said, no, we're doing this one.
I didn't say no. I said, what about this one? Because I remembered you didn't like the story he originally wanted to do, Mike.
Okay.
So
And
I
then,
was like, why don't we switch it over to this one? And he's like, okay, let's do that.
All right. And then Patrick McDonough came on, and he wanted to talk about a show, and you said, no, let's do Children of the Corn,
No, that
which was a story you didn't like. So,
Children of the Corn was all Pat.
okay.
It was Matt Wilderson who wanted to talk about The Stand.
Yeah. Man,
And I
you
was
said,
like,
no, we're going to do this story.
Let's not do The Stand because that's going to be a 4-hour episode. Let's focus on something smaller.
Can we trust any of the picks that the authors have supposedly made?
9 times out of 10, it's the author's sole choice.
Okay.
I had a guiding hand that one time with Max. With Patrick, he didn't know what to pick originally. And it was actually Brennan that suggested he did Children of the Corn.
Okay.
It wasn't me. If it wasn't me, I wouldn't have even suggested Children of the Corn.
You understand your reputation is at stake here.
I do. You can even
Everything we have known about this show has been a lie.
You can even talk to Patrick about it.
I will say, even if you have, I mean, very rarely do we dislike it. And if it is, it's usually me who dislikes it. But
It's like a couple of.
so you've done a good job picking. And for everyone listening, the challenge obviously is if you pick a book, you gotta, and we, even though we are we record way ahead of time and we've been recording every week, And so like sometimes and it'll be me, it will be a suggestion of a book and I'll be like, there's no way I can finish that in this week. So then we kind of determine from there. Like when we did the Reddening talking about Adam Neville, we like, at least we had like a month's notice so we could read the book. So
yeah, we planned that one in advance. And for the rationale of choosing the stories, it's pretty much what I try to do is I try to find stories that we'll have a good conversation out of. There's stories I think fans of the genre should be exposed to. Sometimes there's stories I really want to read myself, but mostly it's, do I think this story is going to make a good discussion? Do I think this story should be read by many people? And if the answer is yes, then that's what I tend to suggest.
Yeah, you're also, speaking solely for me, you are much more well-versed in the short story realm of horror than I am. I am pretty much straight ahead a novel guy. I don't really go out of my way to search out short stories. I will read anthologies, but even then I have a hard time keeping track of the stories and having a long-term impact with them.
That's the same for me. Before this year, I would like pick a anthology or collection, and that would be it. I would just read that one. But this year, I've been kind of doing a little bit of both. And the hardest part for me is trying to remember. And I should get better and make notes of like, oh, we should cover this story. But if you asked me like what collection or anthology I read a month ago, I would be like, I don't know. Let me look at Goodreads.
Yeah.
And I like them. That's not to say I hate them. That's just to say like I have been going through so much this year that I just kind of forget.
I tend to find things that I can connect with more and that resonate deeper with me over the course of a novel when you have hundreds of pages of character development and themes and analysis that the author can devote than 5 to 30 pages of material.
So I got my start writing with short stories. I find short stories to be a challenging art form. Mm-hmm. And I feel like to make a good short story takes a lot of fucking talent.
Yes, it does.
And I also think horror works best in short form. Like I think a short horror story or like a horror novella to me tends to pack more of a punch than like a longer horror novel. That's not to say like it is a bad horror story because it's fucking great and scary as hell. Same with The Stand is also fucking great. But I tend to like find novellas to pack a really big punch or short stories to pack a really big punch.
As much as I love a good horror novel, the novella I think is really where the sweet spot is. And there have been plenty of horror novels that I think should have been a novella instead.
Yeah.
Yes.
The cipher.
But so that's the that's the rationale behind it. It's mostly do we think this would be a good discussion? Is it something our audience should also be introduced to? And if so, it's one I'd suggest. And all three of us tend to like them for the most part.
And I think that's usually a pretty good thing, although sometimes I wish we had a little bit more disagreement. I'd like to see you and Matt fight.
I feel like for the podcast, Matt and I have more of a similar taste than like you do, Mike.
Yeah, probably, but I still want some verbal fisticuffs. I want a good smackdown here.
But I don't think we've really read a book that all of us have disliked.
Yeah.
There's been one.
Which one?
The Freak Show.
Oh yeah. I forgot about that already.
You've already purged that from memory.
Purged that from my memory.
Yeah, I think that's the only one that we were all in universal dislike of that story.
Yeah. Well, and it's always tricky too, because like I think about that before we record, where if it is something I disliked or I had a problem with, I mean, we kind of, and people listening here probably in the same boat, we all kind of have a little bit of the same circle, and so we might be reading a story from one of the people within this circle, and it's kind of an ever going discussion about reviewers and authors and disliking of a book and all that stuff. But like, I try not to be too harsh. I mean, I know Freak Show, we definitely just disliked that one, but there's other ones where I'm like, I can see the good in it. Like Murder House, for example, that was one that you both liked. I didn't. I could see the merit in it. I just couldn't get on board, and I don't like hide my opinion. I let people, everything I've said is how I feel. I'm not like hating something more and holding that hate back, but at the same time, I'm like, man, I just, you put something out there and it's enjoyable. And a lot of people like it. I've seen the reviews, heard everyone kind of talking about it. I know I'm in the minority for, say, Murder House, but yeah. So I think I like that when we do have like a little bit of that disagreement, because then I can kind of give you all those opinions on what we're talking about.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's just fun being the odd man out with something. Or it's like,
I do like doing that every once in a while too.
See all these reviewers like, how the fuck did this book get all of these 4 and 5 star reviews? I trusted you people, and this is garbage. What in the hell?
I will say too, sometimes our discussions turn our opinions around on the stories.
Yes,
like
that's happened more than once.
The Companion, we began that episode with Mike not liking it that much, or I don't think at all, really. And by the end of our discussion, you kind of turned around on that story a little bit.
Yeah, that was a really good discussion that we had with John Langan. So if you haven't heard that one, go back in the archives. But yeah, that's one of those stories that at first blush did absolutely nothing for me. And then the more we kind of broke it down and dug into its themes and the elements and what Campbell was doing with it, the more I grew to appreciate it. I am not going to go so far as to say it's now one of my favorites, but I did find a fair amount of things that I came to appreciate in that story over the course of that episode.
So that gives a bit of an insight about how and why we choose the stories we choose. Next question.
Do you have any questions? Did you collect any?
I literally, none of them came under my Twitter.
Okay.
So you told me you had the document put together.
I do, yeah. I wasn't sure if you got any directly or not.
No, I got no questions directly.
Being the host of the show.
Being the host, I got zip. So I'm relying on.
It's hilarious that you still think people tune into this show for you.
I know. Right?
You're right.
I'm fucking meaningless.
No, you out of all of us, you're the one that has the most no shame in asking authors to jump onto our podcast, which is great.
You miss 100% of the shots you don't take.
Exactly.
I will say you have done a fantastic job putting the show together and keeping it alive.
Yeah.
I would never have sustained this on my own or have even wanted to. If you ever died of COVID, this show would be over.
Yeah. I mean, like we've referenced before in many of these episodes, our lost episodes. We like last summer, I mean, we had recorded a ton. That's why it's
7 of them, I think.
Yeah, and it's crazy to think that we're at our 50th because at some days it feels like we've been recording a lot longer than that. But
by
yeah,
the time people listen to this, it will be longer than that. I mean, we're going back summer of what, 19?
Yeah,
summer 19 when we started recording.
So like that was the one time where I was like, oh, we are done. We lost.
Before we even launched, we lost everything.
We didn't lose everything. We still had the the introduction to horror episode.
Yeah, well, we had to record that the week after we talked to
Taff.
Yeah, and then we had to like rejigger one episode to be our new episode. So I think our third new episode became our official first episode.
Yep.
And then we had our second episode was the introduction, and then we had the Taff. If I remember right. But
I think you remember right. But yeah,
those first episodes were like all over the place with.
Yeah, we. It's a good thing those episodes were lost.
Yeah, I don't miss them.
And I mean, we were close to just like calling it quits then. Yeah. And I was like, no, let's just keep going. Like, this shit happens. Let's just roll with it. And I think we're the better for it because we came with those bumpy episodes, like having our style put together. We grew our chemistry through those episodes. So by the time we were releasing them, we had kind of better chemistry than we did when we first began.
Yeah.
Like, what was our first episode? 3 hours long of us discussing the nest? Like, Jesus fucking Christ, no one's going to listen to that.
Nobody, the world does not need a 3-hour episode on the nest.
No, not at all. God. I did find my notes for that, and I was just like, oh my gosh. Oh wow. Yeah, it was like our pilot episode of a TV show, and where everyone's really awkward in the show, and then they finally get their mojo like halfway through. We just cut out all that crap.
Yeah, it's like we were able to launch with season 2 toward the end of Star Trek: The Next Generation instead of going through all the really bumpy first season and a half shit before you meet the Borg.
We got to the part where Goku found all the Dragon Balls, and that's where we began.
I don't know that reference. I don't understand you. You kids and your cartoons.
Japanese animes.
Yeah. You know, when I was your age, we didn't have anime.
Just Mickey Mouse, and that was it.
Yeah, it was black and white racist Mickey Mouse. It wasn't even...
That's the best Mickey Mouse, man.
Steamboat Willie.
Steamboat Willie.
Last year around this time for Halloween, I remember one Saturday morning I was digging through YouTube for like old Halloween cartoons, and yeah, man, those ones were pretty edgy.
You know, it's something when Disney Plus has to have a warning at the front of their Mickey Mouse episodes.
Yeah. I'm still waiting for Disney Plus to like stealth release Song of the South.
Oh God. Birth of a Nation on Disney Plus.
Hey man, that was the first movie shown on the White House.
I believe it. You know what? They're still showing it there to this day.
I believe that too.
On loop on Air Force One.
It's all Trump watches.
So what's our
at the Klan marching?
What's our next question?
Jerk off to the burning cross.
Yeah.
Oh, it's so tremendous. Look at that flame. Oh, I have such a huge 2.5-inch boner right now. Oh, the fire. Oh yeah.
Oh God.
Ivanka, get in here.
So I do have another question, unless Mike, you want to read one?
Yeah, you know what? I got a funny question, 2 funny questions here, but I'm going to save those until after the big heavy question you got.
Okay.
For us that we know is coming. And I hope I say her name right. I don't know if this is a silent K or a K that is pronounced, but Ellen Knuth or Knuth. Sorry, Ellen.
Sorry, Ellen.
Sorry, Ellen.
Since horror fiction and horror film is often derived by metaphors for societal concerns and has been hugely influenced by infectious diseases and contagions like plague, zombies, werewolves, vampires, are you starting to see and or anticipating COVID-influenced trends in new horror?
Well, we did have that anthology that just came out from the UK that's all COVID horror.
What is that one?
I forget the name of it. I have it on my Kindle. I was given a Moby of it.
Is it a new thing? Well, yeah, you just said it just came out. Like,
it's a new thing.
Like
it came out in October.
COVID didn't hit till March, but they wrote this actually in 2013. They were very perceptive.
They were very forward thinking when it came to this.
They've been sitting on it. It's a trunk novel they've been waiting on for a few years now.
Like finally,
they found the right time to release this anthology.
You just wait long enough, there'll be another one.
Yes.
Oh God damn! It's called Corona Nation Street.
Nice.
All UK authors?
Not all UK authors, but there's a lot of UK authors in there. There's a lot of authors I've never heard of in here. It has Matthew Cash, Lisa Presley, Pat McDonough.
Wait, Elvis's daughter?
No, not Elvis's daughter.
That's Priscilla Presley.
Oh.
Matt Humphreys, Richard Archer, M.B. Feeney, Mark Cassell. All of these authors I haven't heard of. It's put together by Berdizzo Books.
Okay.
And it's a charity anthology.
Well, that's a good thing, at least. I'm happy to hear that.
It's all stories that were inspired by like the pandemic we're in right now.
Okay.
To be completely honest, a lot of stories that are written like during this COVID situation, we're not going to see probably until next year.
Yeah.
Yes, I think that's a fair assessment.
And I am not keen on reading COVID horror, personally speaking.
I mean,
well, I am working on a COVID story that is not entirely.
I'll read yours, Mike.
It's not entirely COVID, but it is like a background element that feeds into what happens. It's definitely more. It is very much tapping into my anxiety over the election and the last 4 years of real life terror that we have been facing with Donald Trump. And it's a story that has kind of been playing in my head for a few years, and I never quite knew how to execute it until Trump got COVID. And I was like, aha, I got it now. This is it. And so, yeah, that's hopefully that'll be out, I think, sometime in the new year if I'm able to stay focused and keep on track with it and find somebody willing to edit it who has a strong stomach.
Is it more or less extreme than mass hysteria?
It depends on what scene you get to.
Oh, nice.
Okay.
It's not a direct sequel to mass hysteria, but it's a spiritual sequel. It is in the extreme ballpark for sure.
Because mass hysteria was something else.
Yeah. There's not going to be any animal rape, but there's some things going on.
Okay. Awesome.
Yeah. I mean, yes, I don't think there's any way. I don't think there's any way.
Sorry, Matt.
Yeah, right. How do I come after that?
I'm going to have another piece of my kid's chocolate from Halloween.
I don't think there's going to be a way where we're not going to see COVID stories. You think like every big event, there was definitely influx of that. And I think this has hit everybody in such a way that there's no way it's not going to be involved. And I think every story after this that deals with whatever that current time will probably have something somewhat related to COVID, even if it's like really tangential, because we've all been affected by it. So I think there's really no way to avoid it unless you write before 2020, 2019.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, the question is, will it all be good? No.
No, mine will not be good. But I think there are various issues that are going to impact it. I think the crime genre is probably going to be more heavily influenced by the COVID outbreak than horror. I think horror is probably going to be more like Ellen said in her question. I think it is going to be more of a metaphorical issue. I don't know that it will be a direct issue.
Yeah.
But I think in crime works, you're going to be seeing a lot of directly related point blank COVID-19 material. And that's going to be coming out, I would say, between 21, 22, 23. Hopefully by the time all of the authors have gotten all of their COVID works published, COVID won't be an issue. We'll have a vaccine. But I also think a lot of that will depend on the turnout of the election and what happens.
Yes.
Yeah. It'll be an interesting year for sure.
I mean, and my hope is that people don't take this and do something stupid with it. Like, we don't need like COVID zombies. Yeah. We don't need.
We do.
we don't need like the Stand version of this. Like, we don't need the fearing version of COVID-19 because it seems
the fearing though. Maybe we do. I would.
Maybe we could do something like that. But it feels like people doing that. And this isn't to say everybody, but what it will feel like is somebody jumping on a trend. I mean, like we've seen that like with all the zombie stuff. I mean, everybody was doing that. Even people that either in movies or in writing that probably didn't normally write horror or was very tangentially tied to horror was like, oh, I can make a zombie thing because it's so popular right now. And that kind of just feels cheap. And it's like, you can take COVID and you can do some really neat things with it, especially with like all the quarantine and being trapped in your house with people. I mean, Max Booth, he did a great job, an amazing story with the tornado and being trapped in a bathroom. So, you can do something really cool with a group isolated in a house. Or
there's going to be a lot of imitators coming out with The Shining kind of stories with quarantine.
Yes. I mean, I feel like we've already started seeing, like, I think what's neat and what would be cool is stuff like Host that was on Shudder. It barely touches COVID, but it's exactly kind of captured the time of having to do Zoom calls. So I think that is a great example of doing something around this without being like, oh, the ghost has COVID, or like, oh, all this stuff. So like,
don't hop on me, the damn ghost.
Yeah, like you couldn't have made that movie a year ago.
Fucking Casper needs a mask. What is going on here? The COVID ghost. Ooh, I have a runny nose.
And we have seen romance erotica stories about COVID. So
yeah, fucked by the COVID-19.
Kissing the coronavirus.
Yeah.
So I think you'll see a couple things. I think you'll see people doing it smart and people doing it dumb.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, that's true of any scenario, really.
Very, very true.
It just depends on how long we're going to find relevancy in this situation. If this is something that we're able to get a new president and responsible mandates to protect ourselves and protect others, perhaps just as, if not more importantly, or whether or not this is something that we're going to be living with for years to come. I don't know. That is obviously something that is way out of our hands, but I think horror is always an examination of the state of the world that we're living in. And I know Brian Keene took some hot water not too long ago after the election for noting that this Republican presidency, and perhaps Trump in particular, was going to be a real boon for the horror genre. And he was more right than he knew, I do believe.
Yeah. Well, and you can examine that. I mean, you can look at big events happening and what the world how like entertainment has responded to it. I mean, you look at after World War II and all the horror movies that came out, Vietnam, same thing. 9/11, you can see a big push in horror stuff. You can see it even with Bush being in office and how that all kind of people responding to that, or like in the 80s, the music and the movies responding to Reagan and everything. So, I mean, he was absolutely right. And it's one of those like catch 22 or double-edged swords where you're like, sweet, we're going to get some really good stuff, but it's scary to think why we're getting that good stuff.
Yeah. But it's also going to kill like 500,000 people before all is said and done at the end of the year.
Exactly. And that's a good question would it be in poor taste? Like, what would be in poor taste with COVID-related media?
The book I'm writing right now is in extremely poor taste, is the grindhouse aesthetic kind of poor taste. What I think is going to be interesting is maybe not so much how it presents COVID, but how much of a reaction it is against the policies surrounding the handling of the outbreak and the pandemic. Yeah, I know we saw some good anthologies that came out of the border crisis and the illegal detainees of children in cages being locked away. I would imagine we'll be seeing similarly themed anthologies surrounding the pandemic beyond just whatever the UK one is. I wouldn't be surprised if Polis Books does something, if this plays an element in the works of authors like V. Castro and Gabino Iglesias. I know suspect they have plenty to say about what's been happening with the border. And I would suspect that they'll have plenty more to say about the handling of the pandemic in their fiction.
Yeah,
and I think everyone else will as well. I don't know how this doesn't influence us moving forward. I mean, you look at just even the stuff we're reading now that is set in 2020 that was written back in 2018, 2019, with the expectation that it was going to be published in the totally normal year of 2020, where there's no mention. People are wandering around in summertime at the beach, no masks, everything's carefree. I was like, yeah, sorry, you kind of missed the ball on that one. The beaches were all closed and we were all in quarantine. So, yeah, I don't think you're going to be hijacking a car then.
Right. And I think, too, and people have made a lot of jokes about it, and I think it's fair, is how we're actually seeing real reactions to quarantine and to COVID, and people without masks and people fighting masks. And it's kind of a bit of a meme of like every horror movie now is wrong because we would have run right into the zombies. Or we would, so
I'm an American. It's my right to be bitten.
Yeah, so like
you can't keep me away from that zombie. I need to get bit.
This is my country.
You're infringing on my rights and my ability to become a zombie.
It'll affect you. It won't affect me.
Yeah.
Hot take. The people who refuse to wear masks are the same types of people who will hide a bite in the zombie movie.
Yes.
Yeah, that's not a hot take. That's accurate. That is.
But so that's something that will be interesting in how that is explored, which I think ties exactly what you're saying with like a Gabino and V. Castro and like exploring, because I mean, at least here in the States, it's become so political, wearing a mask or not wearing a mask, where you can't. I think that would be an interesting thing to explore. And I don't know if I would allow you to get away with a zombie story with that concept, but like you could still play that concept in a good story. I mean, it's the people being told that's the haunted house, don't go into that haunted house, and somebody going into that haunted house. It's,
Yeah, I don't think COVID zombies are the way to go, but I think if it can at least play a background element, it's acceptable. If you can try and keep it from being exploitative and offensive in the memory of all those that died, that would be an important step forward.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know what's going to come of all this other than it will be coming.
Yes.
Some of it will be really good. Some of it will be bloody awful.
All right.
So what's our next question?
You want to go into, we'll do the heavy one because my other question is a little lighter.
All right. The heavy one.
All right. Brace yourselves.
We're building it up and people are going to be like, what?
I've been thinking about this a lot this weekend, and I think that's probably part of my anxiety too.
I've been thinking about it too. So
I'm not going to read the whole thing, but it's because it was asking if we're cool with asking this question, but they want to know how we've handled. Wait, here we go. I've been impressed by how the three of you have been vocally supportive of harassment victims in the horror community. It'd be cool to hear how you all have handled this issue personally and as a podcast with an audience as three. And we've made it really clear we are three white men in the horror business. So that's the question. They like how we've handled it and just they want to know how we've done it.
Alcohol. No, and in all seriousness, like I feel so horror is a dirty word. It shouldn't be a dirty word, but it is a dirty word. And as horror fans, we're all kind of like outcasts in a way, right? And why the fuck would you want to like push away people who are part of our community, who we're all like kind of misfits and outcasts together? Like, why would you do shit to make the community even worse, add toxicity to the community, do things that hurt people in our community instead of just doing things that can bring all of us together? Like, I feel we're such like a small group of people that harassment shouldn't be tolerated. Any type of harassment shouldn't be tolerated. And we should be, instead of vague tweeting, which we all love to vague tweet, but instead of vague tweeting, instead of just like doing dumb shit, we should, one, if someone's doing dumb shit, call them out on it, as we did. Two, if someone's the victim of any type of harassment, especially in a small community, they're the type of people who need support, especially because we have such a small community that we should be lifting each other up instead of choosing sides to tear each other down. That's my look at it.
Very well said. My policy, and something that I try to do, and I'm not always successful at this, sometimes deliberately so, but it's just don't be an asshole.
Yeah, no, that's my motto is literally don't be a dick.
Yeah.
The golden rule is treat others how you want to be treated. And
I thought the golden rule was eye for an eye.
Well,
that's
yeah, I mean, okay, so there's like golden rule A and golden rule B. So like golden rule B is treat others how you want to be treated. And I think sexually harassing reviewers through instant messages online is probably not how you would want to be treated. It's not how I would want to be treated. And it's just a really shitty fucking thing to do. So
agreed 100%.
Yeah. I'm not going to do that. I don't want to receive those things. I mean, I've gotten some nasty emails from irate readers every now and again. My first real piece of hate mail came from a story I wrote called Revolver. And the guy basically told me, well, after tearing me apart for quite a few paragraphs, finally got to the point that I was a godless communist. And while
there's a problem with that?
Well, here's my thing. Okay, I am an atheist, but I love money. I sell my work to make money. So you can call me godless. I don't give a fuck. But I am an American capitalist like so many others. As much as I would love to change the system, I still want money. But I would never send an author that I was offended by that kind of piece of mail. I would not go out of my way to harass somebody unless they come and harass me on Twitter and do shady retweets with their snide little comments and want to open up that can of worms with me. And then I will happily become the asshole that you want me to be. And sometimes it's for my own amusement. But I think you have to be aware of where that line is drawn. If you want to fuck around with a troll and try your best to ruin their day, that's fine. They come at you, eye for an eye. I don't have a problem with that golden rule.
It's one of those like fuck around and find out.
What's that?
Fuck around and find out.
Yeah. If you just want to go around and contact women on Instagram who have reviewed your books and tell them how you want to fuck with them, then we've got a problem. Right, if you're going to come at the people I know, people that I have appreciated, people that have been positive toward me, people whose personalities I enjoy, who I don't want to see get hurt, we're going to have a problem. I'm not going to condone that shit, and I'm not going to stand by it if I can't help it. I think we need to stand up for those who can't always stand up for themselves. I believe the victims, and I will do what I can to support them.
100% same.
Yeah.
From my end too. You have anything to add, Matt?
Yeah. So first of all, it's like how you think. So like if we're gonna talk about the recent summer incidents,
that's not to relitigate shit that has already been put down. It's just the first example that came to mind with that question. But
it was the first one that came to my mind too, honest with you guys.
I don't want to dig up old dirt. I don't want to retry all of this shit again like some other attention-seeking authors have tried to do over the last few months. There's a reason
we're not naming names.
Yeah.
You don't want to reignite this.
Yeah, that's been dealt with. It's done. It's over with. Just know that we are not going to condone harassment. We're not going to remained silent and on the sidelines with it. It's been dealt with. Some of it is because of things that we did and said on Twitter and on this show. Well, maybe not on this show, but definitely on Twitter.
On Twitter, definitely.
Yeah. But no, we're not going to reopen up a can of worms. That case is closed. It's dealt with. Yeah. But if you're going to start fights, if you want to harass reviewers, if you want to come at authors, we're here.
Yeah. Or, yeah, anyone. It's, you know, like we mentioned the like treating others, and I think it's just, I don't know, it's so frustrating and tiring, and it's one of the many reasons why I would prefer to live in a cabin away from everybody, because I don't
nice.
First of all, I don't understand, like I've never understood the like where somebody thinks that it's okay, and maybe they don't, but I'm assuming they do because they do it. I just don't understand that. And that can be for any type of harassment of your race, your gender, who, you know, what you've done, any of that stuff. Like, I know I talk crazy, and I know I seem wacky, but like, I don't understand, like, I just can't wrap my head around where that it seems like that's an okay thing to do. I mean, my whole life has always been kind of looking at that and just never, like, I don't know if I missed that, you know, if we're going to say it's men, because we are talking about the three of us as males doing this, but I missed that male class, because I don't know, I've never thought like, oh, this is a good idea, I don't know what the word no means, and I'm going to keep pushing, or I'm going to send pictures or say certain things because I'm a male and that's okay. I missed that class. So I don't know what that like, I've never had that thing in my head. And
you're not going to be an edgy horror author with a Facebook banner that's glorifying rape.
Yeah, no, I mean,
yeah,
like,
come on, man.
It's so, yeah. So that's, so that right from the start, when I see that out there in Twitter or in real life, or, portrayed in movies or shows or books or anything, I always have felt like it frustrates me to see that and think that that's okay, because it clearly it's not. And like, I can't figure out like what they're doing, why they think that's okay, and why they're doing that. So that is the hard part, and that's part of why I don't think any of us like it. But that's like the main thing, is just seeing that, and like it sucks, because I mentioned it before, we are a somewhat small community. I mean, we all interact. I mean, you can see that if you friend somebody on Twitter or you look at their followers, probably at least 50 to 60% of their followers and who they're following are the same as yours. So we all know each other. So that is one thing of just like why you think that's okay, and why you think you're going to get away with it, and why you don't think there's going to be repercussions. It's just beyond me. That shouldn't be the reason why it's okay to do it, is because of repercussions. You just shouldn't do that. But the fact that they act surprised about something like this happening, or people being shocked and not very happy that you're doing this, just amazes me. It's like, why are you shocked by this? We all are going to know that this happened, and we're not going to stand for it.
I don't understand why people like decide to be an asshole about this shit, because it's so much more effort to be a dick, than it is to be a decent person.
If you're not already an asshole in your day to day, it is a lot of effort to go to be an asshole. Yeah, deliberately.
Like,
the tricky thing, the topic that always sort of comes up specifically for horror, like Rich said, horror is kind of that bad word in entertainment world or media world. And, there are a lot of extreme horror stories. I mean, we talked about Funhouse and other things you've read or seen where they go really extreme. That's not to say it's okay to like think that stuff in real life or be that way in real life. And some of it they do, some of those movies and books, it's there for a reason, and it's there to kind of highlight the terribleness of this. And then I know others, it's just for shock value or whatever. But that doesn't mean like, oh, I'm a horror author, so I can say these things and it's okay, or I can believe these things and it's okay. You know, I will say that stuff, and I know like it's one of those things where those things affect me a lot more now having daughters. It definitely affected me younger. I did not like watching. There's plenty of movies that were very popular that I watched maybe 5 minutes of and couldn't stand. So like Last House on the Left is an example. I literally watched 5 minutes of that in high school student, and I couldn't handle any more of that. But like even now more so.
What about a Serbian film?
God, no. Like I can't deal with those things. I mean, even like something where like Halloween, the first movie, and it's Halloween as we're recording this or the day after. It's like I've seen that movie a million times and it didn't affect me as much as I've seen it recently, and seeing like the trauma that Jamie Lee Curtis goes through, and it just like I'm in a different perspective, and maybe because I'm older too, and so like. Just because that stuff's in the movie doesn't mean it's okay. And just because we're horror authors and horror readers doesn't mean it's acceptable to act that way. So
yeah. I think there is a very negative stereotype of how people imagine horror authors to be, and readers, fans of the genre. You know, we're not say like probably like what 98% of us hopefully are well-adjusted, stable human beings who are able to have a family and hold down a job. We're not serial axe murderers. Just because I'm an atheist horror author, I don't eat people's babies.
Mike, you're not a serial axe murderer?
Well, you know, stop recording and I can answer that question.
Are you going to be in Behind the Horror Book, Volume 2?
I mean, Shane Keane calls me Ed Gain, but I don't know why.
I thought he called you Kemper because you sound like
yes.
Ed Kemper.
Oh, is it Ed Kemper?
Yeah.
Too many Eds. I'm going for Ed Lorne next. There is that negative stereotype that I think we've all encountered. There's that expectation that we're just unkempt, smelly, weird people who are very asocial and peculiar and smell funny because we read weird things. But by and large, I don't think the horror community taken as a collective is all of that different than any other community. You know, we have our problems just as much, probably not as much as the sci-fi community. Fucking God save us from that genre. Some of its more devout fans. So far, we haven't had any racists try and hijack the Stoker Award because not enough white people got nominated.
Yes.
So far.
Well, time will tell on that one, man.
Yeah, we'll see, I guess, after Tuesday how the next Joker goes. But my main takeaway from the question is, you know, when I was a child, I was bullied. I had open heart surgery at a very young age, and that left me with a very long scar that reaches from the top of my sternum down to my belly button. And when I was in school, physically, the other children did not like that appearance, so I was automatically labeled as an other because I had what they viewed as a deformity from this open heart surgery. I could not run fast.
Look at this fucker with the weak heart.
Yeah, that made me an easy target. You know, I was bullied for quite a number of years, and I don't like bullies. Okay, I learned very early on to, frankly, be distrustful of people in general, individually and in a group. So I don't like bullies, and we'll just leave it at that. I don't like bullies, and if you're going to bully other people, then I'm going to have a problem with you.
Yeah.
Same with me. Like when I was a kid growing up, I was one of two Jewish kids in a town full of Irish Catholics. So you can only imagine how that went. Kids would throw pennies at me at school. Kids would make jokes about me killing Jesus. Lots of Holocaust jokes told my way.
I mean, you're not even that old.
I know.
They gave you credit. I mean, that's kind of a big issue, though, to get credit for killing Jesus. You weren't even around back then.
Fucking Christ, man. Fucking. You know what? All it was is he owed me money, and I was tired of paying up this shit. But it's just like I got.
You need your pieces of silver, man. I know how it goes. I'm tight with money. I can be. Well, I'm not.
I got bullied my entire middle school career or life, whatever, just because I'm Jewish. And like, I don't like bullies. I don't like discluding someone from a community. I think it's wrong. And angry and bitter person that I worked really hard to like turn into the person I am today. Mm-hmm. Like if you knew high school me, I'll tell you a story from high school me. My mom was also handicapped, so I was made fun of a lot for being Jewish and having a handicapped mom. And kids are fucking ruthless.
Yeah.
And I was in class one day, and one of my classmates and I was just like being a dumb teenager, and I was complaining about my mom. And one of my classmates told me I should have pushed her out of her wheelchair and told her to crawl. And my instant response was punching him in the face and laying him on the ground.
Yeah, I mean, that seems like a fair response to me. I mean,
and
that is totally justifiable in my eyes.
And just being bullied and being teased for stuff that like wasn't even in my control just turned me into a really angry and bitter person. Yeah. And like I didn't like me turning into that, and I don't like seeing other people being treated unfairly. It makes me really angry. Mm-hmm. And that's why I stick up for anyone who is being harassed. Like I support victims 100%, and if there's any bullshit going in my community, I'm going to be one of the first people to stick up for those people.
Amen, brother.
Yeah. And I still got that right hook, man, so look out.
Yeah, I mean, your actions have consequences. If you're harassing people on the internet, it isn't just some nameless specter you're going after. You're not just sending shit at some bunch of ones and zeros. There's an actual human being on the other side of that Twitter page.
And one thing I will say is people talk.
Yeah.
Like if you're going to harass someone and you think they're not going to say anything, you're wrong. Like,
yeah, you might get lucky the first time, the second time, the third time, and think you're golden. But by the time you get to that fourth or fifth or sixth or seventh person, you're really pushing your fucking luck. You might be able to get away with it once, but you're not going to be able to keep getting away with it. People will find out. People will talk. They might do it behind the scenes. Eventually, that's going to get out there. And so even if you don't give a shit about other people, try and have some respect for yourself.
Yeah. And just respect the community.
Exactly. Yeah. And like kind of thinking about that too, I think that, either it was you, Mike, or Rich, one of you had kind of said with horror and being outcasts and being kind
that was me.
That was you. So like, it's true. We are all not, we're not, and maybe some people are, but we're not all like the in crowd. We weren't when we were younger. I'm assuming for most of us, we were the lonely one on the side. So like, think about that and think about if let's expand it out of just a harassment, but like to marginalized voices. It's those are your people too. Those are the people. They're the outcasts within the outcasts, and I'm glad they are getting their voices now, and that they are getting a chance to shine. And we're seeing anthologies that are kind of devoted to not just your white male person, and we're seeing authors and books come out that aren't dealing with the male, white, or even American viewpoint. So like you'll see that a bit where people are sort of the grumbles of, oh, well, this is another anthology coming out, or what's the big deal that, that we're making a Women in History Month and all these things, and or a Latinx month in horror and African American history in horror, and I think it's those are your people, so stop complaining. And how does it hurt getting a cool new viewpoint on something, or a story that is told from somebody who's not you, who's not your word like exactly like you. I love reading those stories and seeing the history of other places that aren't America, and seeing them all shine and getting those collections out there. So I think, especially in this community, it's important. And I will say, we are seeing people support others. I am seeing a lot more support of people going out of their way, maybe not out of their way is the right word, but buying those anthologies, buying those collections, buying those stories and reading those and touting those to people. So that's good. And I think we can continue that. So, in this community, do that. If you see a female author's book brand new come out, share that, or share that the anthology that's coming out, or be really excited that there's a call for marginalized voices that we want to do a collection for, or publishers are publishing those stories for the next year or something like that. I mean, that's great. And that's what we want. I don't want to, we've talked about the zombie stories and not wanting to see those again. This is the same thing. I want to see stories from other places and absorb those, and just love finding new scary things. That's another side for the community to kind of think about and look at and cheer and support. So all of these, everything, is in there. We are all kind of the outcast. It's the one thing besides horror, we all have that in common. So help support those people and lift them up, because that will only make this community better.
And if you're going to troll us or harass us, and by us I mean people in our community, think about why we're outcasts, and think about the things we have endured and the things that we have put up with, and think about how fucking far you want to try pushing us.
Yeah.
One of the greatest regrets of my life is in high school, I had this football dork who in geometry class, he would always try and put a space between us so that he could sit in an empty desk behind me and kick that desk over the rise of my seat and plow it into my spine for an entire hour every day. The single biggest regret in my life is that I didn't get up with my 700-page geometry book and jam the spine of it into the middle of his fucking head.
You should have.
I wish I would have, and it's a regret that I live with. So if anybody wants to come at me, think about that regret first and what that might mean. If I get a second chance, motherfucker.
We'll move on to a happier topic.
Yes.
All right. So
get some levity here.
Yeah, Zen Ghost Bookworm has a two-parter. The first question is, what the fuck is wrong with you people?
Which we might have covered a little bit already.
Yeah, I think we just talked about that one a little bit. She says, okay, that's probably rhetorical, but I think we kind of answered it anyway. There's a lot of damage to the psyche that we've been building up for a number of years. And we finally have an outlet, and we want blood, quite frankly.
All the blood.
The second question, what is your go-to comfort horror movies that you have seen many times?
Ooh.
That's
a great
Trick or Treat.
question.
13 Ghosts.
Oh, 13 Ghosts.
13 Ghosts.
I didn't know you were doing more than one.
I have a few. Trick or Treat, 13 Ghosts, and the original Halloween.
Very good. I would go with John Carpenter's The Thing.
Nice.
And
that's a feel-good movie for you?
Oh, yeah. I I fucking love that movie.
It's a great movie. I'm not saying it isn't.
For me, that is a comfort movie. I have no idea why that is, but yeah. So I had to take my wife to the emergency room one time, and I took my iPad with me, and I had that movie on there, and I streamed it. Unfortunately, I was not wearing headphones, so she's in a massive amount of pain, and I'm trying to comfort her while watching a movie filled with people screaming and dogs fucking sound effects. And she's like, "What in the fuck are you doing? Will you turn that off?" I'm like, I just. This is comforting. I needed to watch this.
I need a minute.
Yeah, just hold it. It's only an hour and a half.
Feel good. I see the feel good.
Morphine. Just shut up. Let me watch my movie.
Oh man, that's a tough one. I would say, oh man, it's a tie between Maximum Overdrive and Tremors.
Ooh, Tremors, that's a good one.
Those are good ones.
Like, they're fun. I mean, like, there's a ton of other ones. Obviously, Halloween is one I've seen a million times and can put it in and watch it at any time. Phantasm's another one I could sit and watch anytime. But, like, man, I just get some pure joy out of Maximum Overdrive and Tremors. Tremors is, like, the perfect movie, and you can't deny it. You can't say otherwise. It just
new one just came out on Netflix.
Oh, see, after the second one,
with John Heater from Napoleon Dynamite.
His career's really gone far, huh?
Right.
You know what? One that has slowly emerged for me is the first chapter of It, being the It fanboy that I am. The first movie has become one that I can kind of just pop in whenever.
The first movie's really good.
Oh, the first movie is fantastic.
I don't know. Have I ever talked about? So I have the score to that one, and nice. They have put in different like scary bits into it. So like I would be in the office writing late at night, and then it would go to like one of the tracks is called Egg Boy, and that's when Pennywise is chasing around was it Ben in the library?
Yeah.
And it's really creepy music because it's all intense, and Pennywise is like Egg Boy and all this stuff. Like, what's happening? Or like, I think there's one of the sewer parts when they were attacking the one bully in the sewer. That one's really creepy song because it has like the voices in it, and they're like, meh, 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 and it just so it's weird to listen to late at night by yourself. But yeah, Maximum Overdrive is just so over the top goofy, and it's because like when you're talking about like a feel good movie, it's just you want something
it's joyful.
Yeah, you want something dumb.
It's ridiculous. The movie's dumb. It's stupid. It's fun.
You want to?
Is it a good movie? No, but is it like entertaining? Yes.
Okay, so apparently I just don't know what a comfort movie is.
Like I want the one to just is depressing and really goopy and crazy.
I mean, that's how I am with 13 Ghosts. Like, is 13 Ghosts a good movie? No. It is not a good movie. But I love that fucking movie, and I just think it's so much fun. I have lots of nostalgia attached to it, so it always brings me back to like 14-year-old me, like watching it on DVD.
Oh, that movie. It had such good promise. I don't know. It just was a weird time of horror movie making where all the monsters had to look and act a certain way. That I was just like, I can't.
I don't know. The ghost concepts are cool, but they just make no fucking sense. Yeah. And like Tony Shalhoub is really bad.
It's so crazy to think of him in that movie.
It's just like, it's not a good movie, but I don't know. I really enjoy it. And I think the concept behind it's really cool. Like, it's a house that was built by Lucifer to trap all these ghosts.
Yeah, the house is
fucking dumb.
Awesome. That's one of those, like, Adam Neville kind of, like, I would love to just go through that house without a story. That would be cool.
Yeah. Those are go-tos for us.
As for what's wrong with us, I don't know. We're just crazy people, and we.
I think I have the answer for me. I was like 6 years old, and my dad sent me down to watch Halloween, and I think that explains everything.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think you need more explanation than that.
Yeah, it's just, I think I always loved like Halloween, Phantasm, Friday 13th, Nightmare on Elm Street. All of these had such a mythology, and I love, it's like, I was a Star Wars fan. I mean, I am a Star Wars fan, I should say, and Lord of the Rings and all these other epics that have like a mythology tied to them where the story is bigger, and that's fun. But it was also fun to have it while also seeing people get chopped up or, crazy monster things happening where like, there's a lot more happening behind. Maybe Friday 13th, not so much, but like there's a lot more happening, and it's kind of cool to be like in that world and just imagine like the different things of like how that could be. Why is the tall man collecting, and what is this world, and all that stuff. So yeah, I love digging into that. And I think that's what kind of hooked me into this. And it's fun to go kind of wild and read something that's not too intense. I mean, like it's intense, but not like, I've read a lot of literary stuff, and it feels pretentious. It feels a bit pretentious where it's just like we're doing this for a reason, where horror is doing it for a reason, but everyone's having a little bit of fun writing what they're writing. So
yeah. So hope those answered your question.
Yeah. So
did you have anything else in your mailbag, Matt?
I do. I have one more, and I think this is a fun one. This is, do you surround yourself with spooky and fantastical things in your offline life? Or are those just worlds you inhabit in your writing and reading?
I have a small collection of spooky things. I have my Pinhead figure that I like to use in book photos. And I have my 3 Funko Pops, which are Hellboy, Black Phillip, and a giant Cthulhu.
That is a big Cthulhu, too. I have seen.
It is a really big Cthulhu. And I just have a lot of horror books. I usually have Shudder on my TV, or I'm watching a horror movie on TV. I need to decorate my place more. I have a really like apocalyptic, freaky charcoal painting that I want to hang up and frame that I got at Necronomicon.
Nice.
I also have some John Carpenter posters I want to frame and hang up. I got one for They Live and one for The Fog.
Nice.
So like I'll need to get some more memorabilia hung up around here, but I do have my little figures and my skull that I got at Spirit Halloween, the best store that only opens one time a year. And that's really about it. What about you guys?
Not a whole lot on my end. I have a handful of Funko Pops. I have a much larger, probably obscene amount of Funko Pops that are more comic book related. But a handful of good horror ones. When I went to StokerCon, I got a few prints from Lynn Hansen that I would like to get framed one of these days. I've got a couple horror prints. I have a print of the cover to It because, as I have established, I have.
Do you like It?
I am an It fanboy.
You should hang that by your bed.
I should. My wife would not like that at all. But yeah, that's about it. I don't have much in the way of horror stuff outside of the enormous library of horror books.
I would live in a haunted house if I could. I would live and breathe it if I could. I'm a good person, so I'm a good husband, so I don't absolutely cover my house in it. But
I think being married has really put a damper on some of the stuff that we would do and have.
Yeah.
But no, I've always had like. So we're talking about like what's wrong with me and then tying it into this too. It's like for Halloween was the one time a year for my family that we would all get together. We would do in Michigan, a big thing is apple orchards. So we would go to plenty of those. And a lot of those were always tied with Halloween stuff. We had a town. It's about 40 minutes from here in Kalamazoo that would have like a giant, they would have haunted houses, but then they also had this giant costume store thing. So it was tied to a farmer's market. It was very weird. And I could tell you stories about that place for days. But so like that was the one happy thing we would have every year would be Halloween. And so, I mean, my room as a teen and young preteen always had Halloween decorations in it. And they kind of stayed up through most of my life, even outside of my parents' house. And yes, it would be a lot more if I could do that. But I have a fair share. I don't have any Funko Pops, so I can't do that. But I have lots of other stuff. And, I think that, to answer an earlier question and talking about getting into horror, I think that was part of it, was our common connection to Halloween and what that all tied to. So like I think that's the soft spot for me, and that's the favorite holiday kind of thing is tied into that too, and it kind of is carried throughout my life. My desk at work is covered with Halloween stuff all year long, and so it's just to answer the broader question of this, to get a little deeper. Yes, I don't say I'm like super spooky. I'm not like Adam's Family or anything like that, but I do love the spooky stuff, and I do spook easily, obviously with my fear dolls, and living in a house with young children who like dolls is very spooky. Messes me up at night sometimes. So it's fun to kind of be in that zone, but yeah. So it's not just in the writing, it's not just in the reading, it's in everyday thing. And Halloween decorations don't stay up all year long here, but I wish they could.
I feel that. I think we have one more, Mike.
Armand Rosamilia wants to know, collectively, shouldn't it be illegal for all that sexy to be on one podcast?
Yes.
Shouldn't you be fair and spread the wealth to everyone else?
I mean, Armand's the one who wrote this, so like he's already sexy enough.
So he knows what he's talking about.
He knows what he's talking about. I would say it's perfectly fair. There's no law against it. Do we have to spread our sexiness? We're capitalists, man. We keep that shit.
Yes. I mean, if that's like a hint that other podcasts want us to invade their podcast to make it cooler, we will take that and we will do that. But
I'm down.
Yeah.
I don't want to hang out with all those fugly people.
Mike's the snob. Matt and I, we're chill.
Yeah.
I'm sexy and I know it.
So should it be illegal? Yes, but there's no law against it. And do we have to spread this wealth? No, we don't.
No, we don't.
I love it. That's a great question. I did have one other question, which was, do I have to listen to all 50 episodes? And
Yes.
Yeah,
as I had said on Twitter, there is a secret message we are relaying through each episode, and you have to listen to hear it all.
We also have like mini themes. There's mini themes. There's like a little story arc that develops amongst us as
there's lots of inside jokes that like
the
you miss
podcast
out on.
develops.
The characters are developed more and more. You get to grow to love them and worry when one of them's gone all the time. And
there's Matt's scat fetish.
Remember that arc?
That was the best arc.
I'm going to move up to something else. I'll figure out some other growth fetish.
You miss out on character development. You miss out on character arcs. You miss out on inside jokes. Exactly. You miss out on heartwarming returning guests.
Like Max Booth the Third.
And our only returning guest so far.
When you get into deeper episodes, you'll realize that there's even a deeper story happening.
Even though our past episodes and episodes to come will have a lot of spoiler-filled discussions, they might be of stories that you have not read. And you might be so inclined to read them after we talk about them. Even with the spoilers. If you're not spoiler phobic, you might find your next favorite story from one of our past episodes.
Exactly.
So far, two of our listeners are spoiler phobic that I've found out.
Yeah.
Chad like the first half hour. Max Stark.
They don't like our spoilers?
No, they don't like our spoilers.
As long as they download, I don't care.
Even
if you don't listen to them, at least fucking help our algorithm. Get our numbers up and download them.
Hey, man, we had a good couple months.
You get what you pay for here.
Exactly. But no, it's true though. I've multiple authors and or books that we've read a story from that I've later jumped in and read the whole thing. And so it's been a fun ride for me, just like seeing different things that I haven't read before and being like, well, this is awesome. I'm going to read more of this. So
like the Dennis Etchinson's book that we discussed that got lost.
Exactly that. And yes, so many. So it's been cool for me. If I don't care if it doesn't help anyone else, at least I've been finding new stuff.
It's been a really great time.
Yeah, it has been.
And these last 50 episodes have been really great. I'm happy you guys decided to take this journey with me.
Yes, it's been a blast.
It's been a good time. I remember creating the group chat with Mike and being like, "Hey, Mike, I have a proposal for you."
Then he said it doesn't pay, and
it's going to be a lot of work.
Yeah,
it doesn't pay. It's going to be a lot of work.
You're going to have to edit 2-3 hour long episodes.
This is going to be a 2 hour
every single week.
Honestly, I don't think it's that much to edit.
Oh, that's lovely of you to think that.
I'm waiting for you to get.
I don't think it's too much for you to go fuck yourself.
I mean, that's free too, so.
You're not the one who has to edit out all of Matt's and, you know.
What about our 5-minute laughing spree last episode?
I haven't even gotten to that episode. I am on like episode 38 or 9 right now.
That's been the other fun thing is to like, I don't remember what we've talked about half the time. So I'm like, what was this episode about?
Yeah, by the time they air, we've already forgotten what they were.
So we get to relive the conversation.
Yeah.
But no, we're happy you guys have stuck around and grown with us over these last 50 episodes, and we're excited to see where we go for the next 50 episodes.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, hold on. We're doing another 50 of these things?
Yeah. Surprise!
We're eternal.
All right. I thought this was the finale.
Surprise.
No, it's a big finale. I think if we're going to do a finale, we should do something big.
Yeah.
Like go out on a bang.
We should bring back the horror show for our final episode.
We need to
take over for an episode and we'll just call it quit.
Right.
I can see that happening.
We need to find a podcast to have a beef with.
Who could be our enemy?
Then we can have a crossover. I feel like it should be the final guys since they're exactly like us.
Yeah, our podcast is pretty similar to the final guys.
We'll try to take over their audience.
They predate us, so I think really we're more like them.
Well, that's fine. We'll be the scrappy young punks that come in and take them over.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
I'd be down for a final guys crossover.
I think if you just get Hunter Shea a beer, he'll be fine with it.
There you go.
Yeah, I think so too.
A bit of a drinker, that guy.
But we're excited.
There it is. We're starting it.
We're starting it. I am excited to see where we're going to go, and I'm excited to see our listeners grow with us.
Yes. And see who else we talk to. I'm excited to talk to other people.
We got some guests coming on soon. Jessica Guest will be on in a couple weeks.
Nice.
No, she is the author of Cirque Berserk.
She is the author of Cirque Berserk. And I'm talking to Jeremy Robert Johnson, author of The Loop.
Ooh.
Setting up a time for him to come on.
Very nice.
So we still got some guests coming on.
Got some mileage we can wring out of this.
Some tricks up our sleeves.
Did you guys think we would make it 50 episodes?
That's a good question.
That's a good question. Honestly, yes.
Yeah.
I think we have a fun time talking every week.
For sure.
So it just makes sense that it would continue.
What stands out for you? Anything? Is there any big favorites of the last 50?
Ooh, I would say the Matt Wilderson episode was a good highlight.
That was good. I think our Zinni Rockland episode was really good.
Yeah,
that was a good one too.
I will always have a special place in my heart for episode 10 and my Dean Koontz rant. And Matt's burgeoning scat fetish was revealed.
Yep.
Wait, was that the one where we were talking about that one game?
Death Stranding.
Yes,
That's right. Yeah,
Stranding.
the snow. You made it very clear you were obsessed with bowel functions. In that
I have a
episode.
soft spot for our first Max Booth crossover.
That was a lot of fun. Definitely did Death Stranding. That was hilarious. I think Matt Wilson's one was a lot of fun.
John Lincoln one. I was kind of fanboying behind the scenes for that.
Yeah, I know. It's a bummer that I missed that one.
I think
We
also
told him
the
you
Matthew,
were afraid of him, and that's why you couldn't be on the show.
the Matthew Bartlett and John Padgett was a good one too.
Yes. That was awesome to be able to talk to them.
Yeah.
And having Taff on as our first guest.
Yes.
Yeah.
That was great. I think just all of our guests. I think every time we had a guest, I just had a blast.
The fact that we even have guests is just kind of like
it is awesome.
Wait a minute, there's like an air of legitimacy to this nonsense we do. Like,
Pretty much.
why is anybody coming on here? I don't understand. But
Usually,
I guess
the night before, I usually get a little nervous. I'm like, oh crap, I'm going to be talking to Gwendolyn Keist right now.
yeah, you know, I mean, she's only won a fucking Bram Stoker award.
Yeah.
Why are
Well,
they?
why don't you, our listeners, tweet us which episodes stick out to you?
Yes. Or who you would like on that we haven't had on.
If you'd like a guest on, let us know. We'll try to get them on. That's when we got Cullen Bunn. That was kind of cool.
That's right. That was another one Matt was too afraid to come on for.
I know that one and Todd Kiesling. I was just like, damn it.
Yep.
You can tell how good of a guest we have by whether or not Matt is there.
Yeah.
Well, I would say this is going to be a supersized episode.
Yeah.
So we should wrap this one up.
Yes.
But thank you so much for our questions.
Yes.
If you want to get in touch with us, where can they follow you on Twitter, Matt?
I am at Brandenburg DM.
And Mike, where can they follow you?
They can find me on Twitter at MikeH5856.
You can find me on Twitter at Rudy53088 or our Twitter podcast at Into Staring. And make sure you rate, comment, and review us because it all helps us out there in the algorithm because we want to spread this abyss worldwide, baby. And this is Richard Gerlach saying keep staring.
It's Bazong, the weird and wacky fiction podcast. With me, your host, Mr. Frank. Every Monday, we're talking to everyone who's anyone writing weird and wacky fiction. So if you enjoy reading funny and strange books, or you enjoy writing funny and strange books, join us on Bazong each week to learn along with Mr. Frank. Bazong every Monday, a part of the Project Entertainment Network.
Bazong! Bazong! Bazong!
This has been a presentation of the Project Entertainment Network.